For more than 20 years, my life had a clear purpose. I walked the path of faith, dedicating every moment to serving God and helping others find Him. My days were filled with prayer, confession, and the beauty of the Holy Mass. Nothing brought me greater joy than standing at the altar, feeling God's presence and comforting those in need. Every morning before the sun rose, I would kneel by my bedside and surrender my day to the Lord. The smell of burning candles and old wood in the church was as familiar to me as my own heartbeat. Every sermon, every whispered prayer, and every tear shed in confession reminded me why I had chosen this path. It wasn't just a calling, it was my whole life. I had seen both joy and sorrow in my parishioners' eyes. I had witnessed miracles of faith and the crushing weight of despair. I had held the hands of the dying, assuring them of God's mercy, and baptized the innocent, welcoming them into Christ's light. My life was demanding but deeply fulfilling. I never doubted I was exactly where I was meant to be. But then, one morning, everything changed. It started like any other day. The sky was a soft blue, the air fresh with the promise of a new beginning. I entered the sacristy, feeling comfortable by my routine. My hands moved effortlessly as I prepared for Mass, arranging sacred vessels and smoothing my vestments. I whispered my usual prayer, asking God to guide my words and bless those who came to worship. But something felt different. A heavy feeling pressed against my chest. At first, I ignored it, thinking it was just fatigue. But as I reached for the chalice, my hands trembled. A sharp pain gripped my ribs, and my breath caught in my throat. My heart pounded too fast, too unsteady. The walls of the sacristy bled. The air felt thick. I tried to steady myself, to push through, but then the world tilted. The chalice slipped from my grasp. My knees buckled, and before I could call out for help, everything faded to black. I was falling, yet there was no impact. The weight of my body, the distant sounds of the church, all of it disappeared. I didn't know if I was dying, but deep down I knew I was no longer in the world I once knew. I expected darkness to be frightening, but it wasn't. It wasn't cold or empty. It was vast, peaceful, and waiting. Then something changed. A warmth spread around me, not from a single source, but everywhere, wrapping around me in an embrace so deep and powerful that if I had a body, I would have wept. It was love, pure, endless, unshakable love. And then from within that love, a presence emerged. I couldn't see it at first, but I felt it. A knowing, a certainty I was no longer alone. And I knew without a doubt who He was. Jesus. Not as a painting or a statue, not as an image from a book. He was more than light, more than warmth. He was everything. And as I stood in His presence, one truth became clear. He had been waiting for me. I did not need to hear words to understand. I did not need to see His face to recognize Him. My soul trembled in awe. I had spent my life preaching His name, whispering prayers and believing in His presence. But nothing could have prepared me for standing before Him. Then His voice, though it was not sound, it filled me completely. You are here because I called you. In an instant, I understood. I had been chosen, not because I was worthy, but because I was willing. This was not the end, it was only the beginning. Visions began to unfold before me. Glimpse of the world, not just as it was, but as it had been and as it would be. I saw people lost, distracted by things that didn't matter. I saw churches empty, faith fading. I saw families broken, hearts growing cold. And then I saw darkness creeping in. Not with fire or chaos, but slowly through indifference, selfishness, and disbelief. Jesus spoke again. The time is short. They do not see. They do not listen. There was sadness in his voice, but not despair, only love. Love so deep, so unwavering, that even as he spoke of the world's downfall, I knew he had not abandoned us. There is still time, he said, and with those words, I saw hope. People falling to their knees in prayer, hands reaching toward heaven, voices crying out for mercy. Faith rekindled like fire in the night. The world stood on the edge of something great, something terrible, but there was still a chance. But only if we act, only if we listen, only if we turn back to him before it's too late. The vision faded, but the weight of what I had seen remained. I turned to Jesus, my soul trembling, desperate to know what I must do. You must go back, he said. His voice was gentle but firm. My heart ached. How could I leave? How could I step away from his presence, from this perfect love, to return to the fragile world below? But then I saw my own parishness. Their faces appeared before me. The ones who sat in my pews, the one who sought my guidance, the ones searching for meaning. They were waiting. They needed someone to speak, to warn them, and to wake them up. Go, Jesus said again. Tell them what you have seen. Before I could see and respond, I felt it. A force pulling me away, drawing me back. I was leaving. One moment I stood in the presence of Christ. The next I was falling, beyond woven back into my body, into my human form. Sound returned. Distant voices, beeping machines, urgent footsteps. Then pain, a crashing weight in my chest, air forcing its way into my lungs. My heart pounded. My body trembled. I gasped for breath. The room came into focus. Hospital lights, doctors, noises, and nurses. A voice nearby. His pulse is back. Stay with us. I had returned. I blinked. My breath raged. A nurse hovered me over, her eyes wide with shock. Doctors murmured in disbelief. They had fought to keep me alive, but I knew the truth. It wasn't their machines or medicine that brought me back. It was him. A doctor stood at the front of my bed, scanning my charts. You are very lucky, he said. We didn't think you were coming back. I looked at him, my voice weak but steady. I wasn't supposed to.